Mr. Musa, you know, there's been a major argument out there that, look, the Nigerians in the diaspora, not only are they many in terms of quantity, but they've had access to education in various advanced countries of the world. That they, if you look at their remittances to Nigeria, for example, economically, tens of billions of dollars every year. Do you believe that they should have a greater say in who is ruling in this country?
Absolutely. I think the diaspora, you know, we have a lot of millions of Nigerians in the diaspora. In Sudan alone, you have about 9 million Nigerians living in Sudan alone, not to talk of other countries, even within Africa. I'm talking about Africa alone. In Europe and America, you have a large number of Nigerians, and they are anxious to see that they have a room or they have a role to play in terms of the political participation. It is important that we create that enabling space for them to do that. But this can only happen when we're able to change the law, you know, allowing them to fully participate and to also ensure that our embassies, because this thing is going to be invariably conducted by our officials in different embassies and higher commission in abroad, they have to have the kind of the capacity, and Nigerians also have trust in the system, because right now a lot of Nigerians, they are not having that confidence, you know, even within the election that is limited to Nigeria because of the rigging. Just look at the election that took place on Saturday in Kano. It's underage thumb printing and the thuggery and the violence that has been reintroduced into the Kano politics, which is like, you know, going to, you know, affect other states, you know, in Nigeria, not only in the north, but also in the entire country. So the politician, you know, must learn to avoid this political violence and thuggery. Our young people have suffered enough in the hands of the politician. They buy drugs for them, they buy weapons for them to kill themselves and their family and children. They are never in those scenarios of violence. So I think my message to Nigerian young people is that they should not allow any politician to use them for political violence. Otherwise, their children, they are in abroad enjoying, and then they give them, you know, drugs and intoxicated things to get mad and be killing one another. I think it is important that Nigerians begin to understand that the way to go about this is not to be involved in electoral violence. I think we need to push that anybody involved, no matter how highly placed that person is, involved in electoral violence, should actually be banned from participating.
A very disturbing picture that you've painted there in Kano, and this is, as we also see that, you know, a member of the Senate cannot go to his constituency, has been asked not to go for security reasons. But then I'm just wondering, looking at the other amendments that have been made by INEC, I beg your pardon, by the National Assembly, are you quite happy with, are we going in the right direction that we should be going? I mean, aside this controversial reordering of elections?
Well, like I said, you know, I have no problem if the National Assembly is working within the ambit of its own roles and responsibility, you know, its own powers. I have no problem with that. In fact, I encourage National Assembly to be assertive on its own roles and responsibility, because that is the beauty of democracy. That is why we have 3 arms of government. So the National Assembly must discharge its responsibility in terms of the making law, in terms of oversight. You know, it's not enough just to make the law, but the National Assembly has a responsibility to ensure effective and responsible oversight and compliance of those laws. It is not just to make the law, but they must ensure that the law is also respected and complied with. And the executive, they have the responsibility to ensure that they implement those laws that had already been agreed.
Let's look at some of the other amendments that were proposed. For instance, now they have placed a limit on what political parties can charge their members for nomination forms. They've also increased the spending limit, according to them, to take into cognizance, you know, the current economic realities. They also talk about stipulating punishment for any INEC official found to be a member of a political party. And you also find the case where a candidate dies in the middle of an election. They've been able to sort that out as well. And also given backing to INEC's newly unveiled electronic result and transmission system, which the guest in Lagos felt would also encourage independent candidates to be able to monitor closely what is going on without the use of party agents. For some people, they will say these are very, very innovative and a very dynamic amendment coming to the Electoral Act. Do you agree with them, or do you think that we're still not. Do you think that in the next 4 years we'll be looking at other amendments again?
No, I think, these amendments are fantastic. I think they capture the yearning and aspiration of many Nigerians, because we must control the excessive use of money, into the electoral process. And if the National Assembly is helping to ensure that, the money, is cut down, I think it would help, to allow many Nigerians, who have, genuine money, who have no stolen money to participate in the process, Second, I think it is important that we emphasize on the sanction, It is important that, the INEC are not having commissioners who are card-carrying members, of political parties.
Have we had that in the past?
Well, there are a lot of insinuation, insinuation that some, especially, for example, if you look at the state level, most of the people, that are into the, state electoral bodies, they are actually political party members. Many of them, there has been so many protests, so many concerns expressed by Nigerians. And even within the federal level, Nigerians, they have to send a warning that we don't want to see a ruling party member or any member of the political party as a commissioner or in INEC, because that will compromise the integrity of the process.
Mr. Musa, you mentioned earlier about the situation around the Kano local government election, and that really made me think. I want to ask you this question about state independent CX, state independent electoral commissions. Right now in the country, local governments in the states are 100% dominated by the party that the governor belongs to. Can you give us a sense of, if that is the case, I don't know any Nigerian that doesn't live in a local government area or a municipal council or a development council. Can you give us a sense of what can be done to ensure that there's some level of transparency in governance, in democracy at that level?
When there's the absence of rule of law, when there's a promotion of electoral violence and thuggery and rascality, this is the outcome that you will see. And just a few weeks before, for example, the last election in Kano on Saturday, you saw how a sitting governor, in the mix of young people with arms, carrying arms, this is unacceptable. This is not the way to go about doing things, And I tell you that Kano being a very politically, volatile state, with the consciousness it has, there's no way you can have election and say only one party has won everything. In the last election, clearly, especially at the governor election, you see that there was a kind of some level of balance between the ruling party, the party that won, and the other party that was defeated. So how comes at the local government level, everybody won? The same thing also happened in Delta. The same thing happened everywhere, even in Lagos. Everywhere you see that the ruling party would deploy every machinery to ensure that they scare away, they send away people from even not participating, because nobody wants to come and be killed because you want to vote. So many people, they run away because they don't want to be killed. They don't want to be, harassed. They don't want to be intimidated, because the way and manner in which they turn the thing, they make it to look like a do or die. And if the state government that is supposed to control and ensure sanction of people who are involved, and now they are the one, actually directly involved in it, then how can you kill yourself?
But when you look at the influence that state governors have, for example, over many of the members of the National Assembly, them getting there and then them returning, if you talk about a constitutional amendment exercise in which they'll be able to potentially arrogate the powers of a CIEC to INEC to kind of curb this trend, it could potentially be difficult. Not so? What can the federal legislature do about this?
Well, I think the National Assembly, in my opinion, is much more moderate in terms of whatever whatever issue they have done. For example, the president, as far as I'm concerned, has no any influence of what the National Assembly is doing. You cannot say so with the State House of Assembly. Not a single State House of Assembly in Nigeria that you will say that the governor is not in excessive control of that place. So
do you think INEC should take over the roles of CX then, as some people have proposed?
Well, then how long would that continue? Are we saying that Nigerians, even at local government level, at state level, cannot be responsible? I think we just need to push to ensure that, right thing is done. we must have a situation whereby, the state be able to conduct things responsibly. You cannot continue just to say everything when we are talking about devolution of power. It is part of the restructuring that people are talking about. And you cannot surrender such an important thing then because you have brought up confidence against the state. No, I think the people must insist and demand accountability and right thing being done. Otherwise, it will really be a pity that 19 years after democracy, yet we are not able to advance, democracy at the grassroots and the state level. I think it is important that we must continue to make sure that people behave responsibly and people account for their deed.
It's a fine place to leave it. Mr. Auwal Musa, thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily. He's the Executive Director, Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLAC, and Head of Transparency International here in Nigeria. Sunrise Daily will continue in just a moment. Please stay with us.